Hey guys, welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Andre Seegers, and this time we're again joined by Derek Bittner and special guest Ash Paulson from Game On, and Amanda K from Amanda K Cosplay to discuss all the new info and story details from Hyrule Warriors. So let's get started. Alright guys, so we've already done a pretty comprehensive Hyrule Warriors discussion yesterday, but as soon as we posted it, of course new details and screenshots came out. So what I want to focus on mostly this time is the new story details we've learned and character details, because there's a lot of interesting stuff there. But before we get to that, they also released a bunch of new screenshots. I just want to talk about those real quick. Mostly, at least to me, these are a lot more impressive than the ones, or than the first trailer we saw during the Nintendo Direct in December. I was just pretty thoroughly impressed by how awesome these new screenshots look. But I wanted to start off with your guys' impressions, and let's start off with you, Amanda, because we haven't had a chance to talk to you yet about this game. So what do you think about everything you've seen so far?
Well, everything looks amazing. To be perfectly honest, when I first heard about this game and saw the trailer and it was so, there wasn't all that much out there, so I couldn't really draw too much of a conclusion, and I wasn't really that impressed at first. I was just like, okay, this is just going to be a nice little side game, it'll be fun, and of course I'll get it because I'm obsessed with Zelda.
Right.
But I wasn't excited about it really until today when we were kind of looking over everything and you were showing me things that have been announced over the last few days, and I can't tell you how excited I am about it now. Just seeing all of these different character designs, especially for Shia. Obviously, I'm going to cosplay this eventually. But yeah, and it's just the story details. I mean, everything just kind of seems more comprehensive to me, and it's got substance now.
That seems to be the key here, is the substance that now seems to be part of this game, because before it just seemed like another Dynasty Warriors clone. I mean, those are fun on their own, but for non-Dynasty Warriors fans, there's not much for us to latch onto. And with these new screenshots, there is that sense. There's this story that actually seems rather interesting. There's these graphics which look pretty damn beautiful, honestly.
Really
surprisingly so, because I might be completely wrong about this, because I don't think I played a Dynasty Warriors game since the third one, and I only seen screenshots of the others up till 8. But I don't think they've ever looked this good. Just everything seems to be coming together, and this much more seems like a complete game. It has that pop now that I think is really starting to get people's attention.
I mean, I think that can just be owed to the passage of time too. I think when this was first shown off, it was pretty early. It felt like it was early in development, and now it's kind of had the brewing time it needed to really come together into something more substantial and something that has its own identity. It doesn't just look like a Zelda take on the Samurai Warriors anymore. It looks like its own kind of thing, and it looks a lot more, like I said, substantial, and the characters are interesting, and especially the story and the setting. We're definitely getting a few interesting details and things that we can glean about possibly where this takes place in the series timeline, which we'll talk about. And it definitely, I'm a lot more excited than I was.
Yeah, well, that's a perfect time to segue into our next topic, being the story. Because we have learned a lot of new details since then. And again, I want to credit Streets Ahead over at NeoGAF for his awesome translations of this stuff. It's definitely a lot better than my Google Translate app.
I think you should read it anyway. It was pretty funny.
You can almost kind of tell what it's getting at, but you're still not entirely sure. All right, so let's go ahead and start off with the story. And I think actually, Derek, we'll have you explain it, because you have a pretty good understanding of what's happening here.
Yeah, I kind of live for this kind of stuff. I love story in games, just pulpy fun. But basically, the overall story for this game seems to be that Shia is described as a witch who is responsible for protecting the equilibrium of the Triforce, which is something completely new that we've never heard of before, so that's pretty interesting in and of itself. However, she also has a major crush on Link, who is just a lone soldier in training.
Who doesn't?
That's actually a very good point. Every girl in Legend of Zelda always has a crush on him, so it's kind of funny to see them take that as a story element for this game.
They should.
But yeah, with he is a soldier in training. I'm not quite sure how she gets to know him. That's fact. I guess that's something to find out eventually. But she eventually grows jealous because of his relationship with Princess Zelda, and because of that, she becomes overcome by wickedness and becomes evil. Her heart gets a dark power forces out any good in her, and she joins up with two minions, Valga and Wizro, and decides to throw Hyrule and basically try to take over Hyrule or destroy it all or something, with just hordes of soldiers. So of course, Link takes it up upon himself to rescue Princess Zelda and become actual, hero that they need. And from the story details, we're actually getting even more of an idea of what's going on with this story. For Link himself, he's an exceptionally strong soldier in the Royal Army of Hyrule. An interesting thing to note here with him, though, is that he apparently has the ability to speak with fairies. And, well, it's Link speaking, so that...
Wait, oh my gosh, I totally just... That clicked in my head, like, wait, what? No, that's so weird.
Yes, he can speak with fairies, but is it speaking to fairies in the same way that Link spoke to fairies in Ocarina of Time, where they more just spoke to him?
Right.
Yeah,
who knows if he'll actually talk or not, but it is interesting stuff to note. But yeah, it's just basically giving a little bit of idea and for each of these characters, but that's the basic overall one for all these characters. We'll get into the specifics of each one.
There have been Zeldas in the past. I mean, obviously, like, the first one had very little story and just kind of progressed from there, like game after game after game, and this one actually seems to have a pretty decent storyline for being like a side game or an offshoot from the main series. As you mentioned before with Shia and like the whole love story happening and her being jealous and that making her evil, and it's like you never really saw that story element in past Zelda games, and I'm actually thinking this is really kind of fresh.
Yeah, the closest I can think of would actually be Skyward Sword, where you saw some kind of like relationship.
Yeah, but
between...
it wasn't obvious. It
wasn't. It was definitely...
it was kind of hinted at.
Yeah, it was still definitely subtle, but it kind of makes sense that they'd evolve it with this game if it appears to be based, maybe after Skyward Sword.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like with the graphics and everything, you kind of look at it and you go, okay, this is definitely a more adult Zelda game, which I'm really excited about because I've always, like, growing up with the game, like, I've been playing this game, whether it was vicariously through my parents as a 2-year-old, but like literally all my life I've grown up with this series, and as I'm growing up, I want this game to grow up with me. So just this more mature theme is really appealing.
It definitely has kind of coalesced into something more substantial than I kind of thought it would be story-wise, so I'm a big fan of the Zelda timeline too, and I'm a big fan of just kind of the overarching story, so I'm really looking forward to seeing how this kind of develops on its own, and also see where its place eventually settles in the overall timeline. But I agree with you. I mean, I think there have also been some, there have been some other pretty dark entries in the Zelda series thus far, but it's interesting to see Hyrule Warriors kind of taking this route and showing us a different side of these characters, and I'm really looking forward to seeing kind of how all this comes together.
Yeah, the love triangle thing is definitely interesting, and really, isn't it more of a love triforce?
Nice.
Hey Derek, you liked that a lot more last night.
Yeah.
How dare you feign that laughter? Now, beyond just the core story, though, we also learned a lot more about these characters, too. Do you want to explain that, Derek?
Yeah, I mean, we already went over a little bit of Link, and, he's basically the Link we always know, but the interesting thing about these character profiles is that not only does it give a little bit of his backstory, but also how they'll fight in battle, and his basic style was he mostly uses nimble battle style that relies on footwork to mess with his opponents, which is basically his Z targeting. In this game, he can make use of various weapons, which we already knew, but his main weapon will always be the speed type sword. So basically, he's the Link we've always known. Nothing too different there.
Right.
However, this is also the first game that we'll be able to play as Impa, who is described as the commanding officer of the Hyrule Imperial Guard. She is an attendant and vassal to Princess Zelda, like always, and she's the leader of a family charged with supporting Hyrule's royal family from the shadows, so the Sheikah. Basically, what she's always been is the same for this one, so not really doing anything different here, except for the fact that she's, a fighter, much more so this time.
Well, and the interesting thing about her is, I think as you pointed out, that she looks, or maybe Ash, I can't remember, she looks just like her Skyward Sword, take on the character.
Yeah, definitely more similar to that design than any other Impa, I guess.
Well, I mean, it's actually, I've been comparing the two designs side by side, and they're strikingly similar, right down to the outfit. And that, to me, kind of only kind of cements my feeling that this might take place kind of after Skyward Sword, maybe right after Skyward Sword in the timeline. But I think it's really interesting. The
thing about the Sheikahs, or like Impa specifically, is she lives freakishly long, so that could be the same Impa from Skyward Sword.
Well, except that by the time Skyward Sword ends, we've seen her grown old.
Right, but how far into the future is that exactly?
That's a good point.
I think it's 100 years, isn't it? Isn't it 100 years? That's true. I guess there could be a whole other story that happens in between Link's time traveling. I guess, I didn't expect... Yeah, I didn't think about that. Although, no, well, but now we've seen Hyrule Field already, so...
That's true.
Well, do we know Hyrule Field wasn't still formed at the end of Skyward Sword?
No, because they had just... Link and Zelda had just kind of decided to reclaim the surface world and found Hyrule at the end of Skyward Sword. So.
Okay, well, I mean, if anything, she could just be like a direct, descendant. Yeah.
So. That just tells me that it's a very, like a direct descendant that's not too far removed from that time.
Sure.
Yeah, that makes the most sense to me. I don't think it's the same one. I think there need to be a bit more time. I do get the sense that this is a in-between game between Skyward Sword and Ocarina of Time, which, there's other hints to that, which we'll get to. But as far as Impa's fighting style, she has a long sword, which of course we've seen, but she started, apparently she wields it backhanded and disposes of her enemies with exact precision in quick, feverish succession. She is basically a sword master with very quick movements and footwork. So I saw a lot of people concerned with that she might be a slower character because of the large sword. That doesn't seem to be the case at all. She seems to be as quick as possible and just has like this big-ass sword to back it up with.
She's so cool.
I mean, I think it's kind of cool to see a female character that's not focused on speed or agility and actually is focused on power. I mean, you don't see that very often. Usually, the female characters are more magic-based or speed or, lower life and lower power. But she seems like a powerhouse. I think that's cool to see. And I also think it's nice to see that Impa's never been a particularly sexualized character, and I feel like given the developers behind the game, and let's be honest, Shia, this would have been the game where Impa would have been super sexualized, and she's not here.
Right.
So I'm glad they kind of showed restraint there. And,
oh, absolutely.
And that's maybe a little surprising given the pedigree.
I think Shia, based on her description, which, we're still talking about Impa here, but I think they made Shia that way because I guess that fit the character they were going for with her. And, this is being overseen by Ayanuma, so he approved of every one of these designs.
True.
So I guess, I can't imagine him allowing for anything too racy to happen with Impa. I mean, there's been other examples of sort of chesty characters in Zelda, before.
Yeah.
But never quite to the degree of Shia. I think, overall, I like the idea behind playing as Impa. That's always been one of the big go-tos. And the style for her seems really cool. I've always liked, that sort of idea of you're just doing quick, hard-hitting shots, and I'm excited for her.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, talk about Shia. Her official description is known as the Black Witch. She is an evil witch who had her good soul chased out by dark forces. So, to me, just a little quick aside here, that seems to indicate that she is not going to be the big bad, but just the sort of like Zan.
Sure.
Right.
Maybe this dark force we brought out. Presumably, the good soul got chased out because of her jealousy. Anyway, she has a strong sense of self, clearly states her desires, and a provocative and aggressive personality, which ties into her outfit. She wants to make the whole world hers, but especially she wants to make Link hers. I know there's been a lot of talk about the way Shia looks. I mean, it is striking at first because it is Zelda, but based on this design, I'm kind of thinking like it works. I don't really have a problem with it. I've already sort of gotten over it.
I don't either. I mean, to be perfectly honest, as a woman, and I'm actually kind of a prude myself, I am not offended by this whatsoever. And you know what? I actually really like it. So I really don't think their offense should be taken at any place at all.
Yeah, at the least it stands out compared to Zelda games.
Yeah, absolutely it does. It's different.
But as we all know, if there's offense to be taken, someone will take it somewhere.
It's true.
Oh, yeah.
But the more interesting thing with her appearance is, I guess, a few things, and that is, what exactly, is she referencing anything? Yesterday we determined that it didn't seem to be, because we couldn't see any major bosses that she was referencing.
Right.
As Volga was. But, as it turns out, some people have since noticed that she bears some similarity to Meg, the Poe from Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask. With a purple, and like her face mask resembles it too.
Mm-hmm. And her headdress, the shape.
Yeah, exactly, right. So I don't know if that's intentional, or if they actually are. And the interesting thing is how that might tie into another character from the game, which, do you want to start describing them, Derek, or...?
Yeah, I can go into Wizrow. I have a couple ideas myself for Shia, but we'll cover this point first.
Yeah, they all kind of tie together, which is the
yeah,
weird
which
thing.
makes it a little tricky.
Yeah.
But anyway, Wizrow is known as the Dark Sorcerer, and what seems to be interesting about him is that he actually started out as just a ring, which increased its power over many centuries by luring in numerous owners and absorbing their powers. Which, boy, does that sound familiar?
Yes, it does.
But apparently, Wizrow was reborn more recently as a sorcerer because of Shia's dark magic, and has pledged his allegiance to her because of that. So effectively, she is his mother, but he has a tendency to follow those in power thanks to its many experiences. So that, to me, hints that like if the major power that corrupted Shia shows up, he might divert to that guy instead and follow him. Like, let's be honest, it's probably Ganon, but
Demise.
or
Yeah, I
Demise.
was gonna say
yes.
Demise. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So that could be too. So, he has a very interesting thing, and of course, the name is very much a reference to Wizrobes, which design is kind of based off, and you can even actually, going back a little further, is that, it says he comes from a ring, and if you look at his one hand, there is a ring on his finger.
Right.
So that might be where he started from, and just the rest of it comes from that ring. But of course, he also shares the name with the Wizrobes, but then there's other ideas behind it, which, Andre, I think you have them?
Yeah, well, I think we touched on it a little bit yesterday. Both me and Ash noticed that he bears a strong similarity to the Poe Collector from Ocarina of Time. And that's because he has a single eye, which Wizrobes, as far as I know, have never been portrayed as having before. They've always had two eyes. And of course, he's wearing the whole cloak thing, too. So, I don't know, it's weird that they would give him this red eye, just like the Poe Collector, and not have it be related, which is entirely possible. But then you add to the fact that Shia looks like a Poe herself. I don't know, it just seems like a weird, that we have these two potentially Poe-based characters, or Poe, not based, but, these two characters that tie into Poes in some way. But, there's a whole thing that he's named after Wizrow. So I don't know if there's any way to reconcile those two theories into one, or if it's just coincidence that he looks like the Poe Collector, and he actually is just, the beginning of the Wizrows, I guess. Or Wizrobes, I should say.
Well, Poes come from corporeal or non-corporeal or corporeal. What? I forget where that comes in. But they start out not dead, not ghosts. And
Excellent
then they
term.
become, right?
And that raises a good point with this guy did he exist before and then was reborn as this, or is he just the product of the ring, of it absorbing all these people?
So many
Right.
questions, not enough answers.
Exactly.
It's almost a little too coincidental with the Poe Collector and Shia looking similar to the Meg. I think that's just a coincidence as far as designs, especially since, as Amanda noted, that it notes that he will attack with magic pulses like bullets, or from magic from up above, which as Amanda said, that kind of reminds her of Wizrobes.
Right. They've always had that same pattern from before. So, I mean, and it's like the name is so similar. It can't be a coincidence.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. That name is pretty similar.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to throw a whole nother wrench in this now, because I've just noticed something, and it's probably nothing, but if taken as a whole, Wizrow actually doesn't look too dissimilar from Vati, given the purple robes.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and Vati does have one eye in all of his, crazy transformations, his non-human forms. So, I mean, again, I'm sure it's nothing, but if this does take place between Skyward Sword and Ocarina of Time, the only other game that takes place between those two games is the Minish Cap. So, and that, of course, is the game that shows us Vati's origins. So, it's just something to think about, but, he's got the purple robes going on. He looks like a more detailed, kind of more realistic version of kind of like a combination of Vati's human form with the robes and the one eye in his transformations.
Even going back to that, I mean, it's funny you mentioned Vati and the Minish Cap, because back during my analysis, we pointed out that the sword that Link uses at one point looks remarkably similar to the Picori sword in Minish Cap. So right there's another connection. So I think we've narrowed down the timeline. It's somewhere between Skyward Sword and Ocarina of Time, and potentially after Minish Cap. So that's all very interesting to see, like all these little connections, whether intentional or not. It really does give a better sense to this game. Now going back to Shia, because that's you guys' ideas for Shia, that she is connected to Meg the Poe in some way. I got a different sense from her, and that's when I finally got to see her full profile. And you got to see the tattoos going up her leg, which I felt were very similar to the tattoos on Impa, which might mean she's a Sheikah, which also would make sense to why she's a protector of the equilibrium of the Triforce, because that's usually the Sheikah's jobs. So maybe she's a corrupted Sheikah, and that's the remaining tattoos because she has the darker skin, the white hair. She sort of just fits the profile. So what do you guys think about that possibility?
I mean, it's definitely a possibility. I just, I feel, I have this nagging feeling that I've seen those tattoos before, not on a Sheikah, but I can't think of it and I can't pinpoint it, so I mean I can't really.
Yeah, I mean that's something that I didn't notice until you mentioned it, and yeah, I mean I think there's definitely a possibility there, and she's got white hair as well, so I think that leads further credence to that possibility.
I guess all that's left as far as characters is Volga, which I don't think anybody has any trouble identifying what his origins are.
Not anymore, yeah.
He is definitely early form of Valga, at least inspired by him in some way.
Right. His helmet is exactly like his skull. Like when you defeat Volga in Ocarina of Time, like his skull just drops into the middle of the fighting arena, and it's bam, there's his skull. You defeated him, and like that's exactly it. It's so exciting. That was like one of my favorite villains.
Yeah.
But he was like one of the main ones that showed off in the trailers too, because he just looks awesome, yeah.
Yeah, just a really great design. It's great to see him bring him back in some way, and even just his human form. But his description is known as the incandescent evil warrior. Valga is a close associate of Shia's. He traded his good soul for incredible strength in a deal with her. Differing from Wizro, Valga will face you head on like a true soldier, believing that he can win. He looks for strong opponents and heats up, in quotes, in any battle he's in. With his lance, reminiscent of a dragon's claw, and a bellowing war cry, he will come at you with heavy blows repeatedly. So this all but confirms to me that he is a human form of Valga.
Yeah, I mean, that seemed pretty clear, and this does just confirm it. But then, yeah, I guess the question is, why exactly? Like, yeah, I mean, I guess is the idea now that all Ocarina of Time bosses had a human form before taking on their monstrous form, or are they like reincarnated again, similar to Link, Zelda, and Ganon, or?
I love that idea. I love that that they all started out as humans somehow. I mean,
yeah.
If you think about it, the way that like past Zelda games have gone, Ganon shows up, he's all evil, he wants to take over the world, and then every dungeon that you face, you come up to like a boss that you've seen in past games. Either, like, I mean, especially with, like, Queen Goma, for example, shows up in literally every Zelda game at some point or another. You fight a giant spider. But with this game showing that, like, oh, well, maybe all of these villains, all of these bosses that you fight at the end of every dungeon had a human form at one point or another. After this Link defeated these human forms, they've... their souls or whatever are floating around in the ether, and Ganon just keeps plucking them out and recycling them from this point forward. I really love that idea, actually. Kind of gives it more sense.
And I would not at all be surprised if, say when you fight Volga in Hyrule Warriors, if you fight him once as a human, then you fight him as a dragon, and then instead of actually killing him, something happens, kind of like Ganon, where, he gets sealed away or something. And, yeah, and then... that he, for him to then reappear in Ocarina of Time in the Fire Temple. So I think that there's really a lot of interesting things to consider here. It's getting really interesting.
It has a great sense of lore to it, which you really wouldn't expect from a side game at all. I mean, could be some potential origins here, like maybe you defeat Wizro and his consciousness dissolves, and that's how you get all the different Wiz robes. Just various forms coming back in those from that origin. Very curious to see what more they'll show, since it's not going to be too long before this game's released, and they did promise to start putting out a lot more details. That's
one of the main questions, I suppose, is like, is this going to be canon? And we discussed this yesterday too, but I can see it going both ways. I mean, as is, it sounds like an awesome way of tying in together, those early set Zelda games, but I can also just see them doing this because it looks cool and not having any bearing at all on the story.
They're like listening to our discussions. They're just like, these guys are funny. We didn't even think about that.
Well, I mean, the more and more we discuss it, the more I look at all this stuff. I mean, it does seem like it's pretty well thought out and calculated in terms of, the little references and little Easter eggs. So I'm really thinking that this could be considered canon, and not maybe we're the ones that are wrong for thinking of this as a side game. Maybe this was always considered to be, internally considered to be a main, not like a main Zelda game, but a major chapter, not just a side game.
Well, I think most of us, at least in this discussion, have leaned toward it being part canon, but a lot of people online, do seem to be like, you always get an instant response like, no, they said this game's a spin-off, or they said this game's not canon, which they never actually said. A lot of his words were something along the lines of, this isn't a main Zelda game, which to me just clarified the fact this won't play like a main Zelda game.
Yeah,
it's not.
That's the sense I got.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think he said anything as to whether or not it'll fit into the official canon. But as is, it definitely seems interesting with everything they're doing here.
The world seems to be based on that. When we get to see we get to see a great fairy fountain in one of the screens. We get to see a new place that battles will take place that's not the Hyrule Field, which I believe Streets Ahead translated it as the Lanayru Gorge.
Right.
Which was an existing place in Skyward Sword. So here's the ruins of the Lanayru Gorge after people moved away from that desert area. So that's just, it's almost too perfect. Like it would really surprise me if it isn't canon. Now I hope for non-canon stories so we can play as other characters, but I think for the main story involving Link and Shia, it will be a canon story. I guess the only other thing to say is, as far as story is concerned, not even beyond timeline or all that, is that it sounds like Shia is going to kidnap Zelda, which is honestly kind of disappointing. I was hoping for this sort of setup to allow for maybe Zelda to take a proactive role and even become a playable character, and that still could happen. We have not seen Zelda in this game at all. The Sheikah here, she could take her Sheik form, she could just do it on her own. I think we saw hints of a girl in a dress in the analysis, like just in the very far away, so she could still pop up. So I'm very curious to see if Zelda will pop up as playable, and I really hope she is. What do you guys think?
Oh yeah, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, I think she will too.
Yeah.
I think the idea will be is that you will rescue her at some point, but that's not the end game. You will keep going at that point, and you can use her to continue playing. Yeah, but I think you're pretty excited about this possibility, right, Amanda?
Oh yeah, I mean, if I could, you get to play as Zelda / Sheik in Super Smash Bros, but that's Super Smash Bros. It's not a Zelda game, and
right.
you really haven't been able to do that. The closest we've come to is in Spirit Tracks, where Zelda's your ride along, and she helps, or at the end of Twilight Princess, where she plays an active role where she's shooting arrows and helping you defeat Ganon, but you're not the one playing as her. She's just kind of helping.
Well, you're forgetting one very important exception. Zelda's Adventure.
I knew it.
Oh,
I knew it was coming.
I had to go there.
You spoke of that shall not be named.
Can we kick him out of the discussion?
I apologize.
I'm joking. No, I guess you're right, kind of.
No, I definitely am not. I think even Nintendo officially disavowed those games.
Okay,
Those in Hotel Mario do not exist.
Yeah.
More so than the Virtual Boy.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah. Well, so anyways, it would be nice to be able to play as her for once. It would be wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think she'll be playable, and Andre, I kind of agree with you. I think maybe the end game won't be rescuing Zelda. Maybe that just might be kind of like the mid-game climax, and then maybe you'll fight Shia, and then you'll rescue her, and then we'll find out who the true villain is, and Zelda will be playable from that point on. I think that's very possible. Given the this game's probable place in the timeline, I'm curious as it's going to be, whether it's going to be Ganondorf or Demise, because as it stands, Ocarina of Time is the first time we see Ganondorf.
That's
right.
true. Yeah, that's a good one. I forget, it's been a while since I played Skyward Sword. What was did Demise have a definitive end there?
Basically, he said he will continually live on, and you get the sense that, he's speaking of Ganondorf and how he's constantly reincarnated and stuff like that.
Well,
he could be referring to himself, right? Sorry, what, Amanda?
He actually didn't. He wasn't just referring to himself. It was almost like a curse. Like when Link defeated Demise, he was like, "I'm throwing this curse out, guys. I'm coming back. You're coming back. She's coming back. We're all coming back over and over and over again. We're cursed from now on." Like he literally says that, and then that's kind of where you go, "All right, well that makes sense. Why there's so many Zeldas and so many Links."
That makes sense why he's so damn determined.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't get the sense, and maybe that was just me, I didn't get the sense that Demise's curse caused Link and Zelda reincarnate itself. I just got the sense
really?
that was just not what I read. I could be wrong. I got the sense that Demise's curse just meant that there would always be an evil force to plague Link and Zelda's bloodlines throughout the ages. Mm-hmm. That they would always be reincarnated anyway because they're the chosen spirit of the Triforce. But that Demise just ensured that that an incarnation of him would always be there to terrorize them. But yeah, I mean, I didn't think about the way that you interpreted. That could be true as well.
That could have just been my imagination, but who knows? I need to replay the game anyway, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a good excuse.
Yeah.
There you go.
So that covers all the story stuff that we know of so far. But we also learned some more details about the treasure box, which is basically the ultimate collector's edition version of this game. And it's going to retail for about 15,000 yen, which comes out to roughly $150 US. But again, that price may not be what it is if it comes to the US. It'll probably, who knows what will come in at here. But I'm guessing a little bit lower. But the contents of which includes the game, an official art book, the Triforce clock, 3 costume sets, including one based on courage, the pieces of the Triforce being courage, wisdom, and power, a hero scarf, and then a treasure-shaped case that makes a sound, apparently. I'm guessing the Triforce noise.
Well, the treasure box is actually a treasure chest that maybe opens up and it does the da-da-da-da.
Yeah, that makes more sense thinking about it than me just reading this list. So, yeah, I mean, that sounds cool. I mean, for me personally, I don't buy collector's editions, but I can see why people would be, super into this.
Well, Andre, if you do end up getting this collector's edition, I will pay you monies for it. Just hearing you read the description of what comes in that just made my heart beat faster. I'm not even joking.
Yeah, two things stand out to me in the treasure box. They're the hero scarf, for one, because I think Link looks really cool with his scarf, and I can see a lot of people using this in their cosplay. And two, the art book. And this is just personal because, as I think, a couple of you guys know, I work for Udon Entertainment. We do art books. And I'm definitely going to mention to my boss that we should try to get on this, because I would love to work on this.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
It would be really cool.
No, I'm with you guys. I'm not always up for, these types of limited editions or box sets or stuff like that, because usually this don't feel worth it to me. But everything in this set is pretty awesome. I mean, to have an actual Zelda chest that does the music when you open it, that's kind of awesome. I'm very curious what these different costume sets are going to be. I mean, that's sort of the minor thing here, but it's the scarf, the art book, and the clock that I think could be really cool. And God, I hope that they bring this to the US.
I know, right? I might just have to get it in the Japanese version if they don't. I would. I'm shut up, take my money.
Wasn't there a treasure chest case that made a sound for the limited edition of A Link Between Worlds?
There was.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, the little tiny one. So this is the evolution of that.
Right. Nice.
It found the super mushroom.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up for our Hyrule Warriors discussion. So thanks for watching. I mean, if you like this discussion, make sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain, which you can find links to in the description below. There's a good way to keep up to date with everything we post. And of course, keep an eye on GameXplain.com for more on Hyrule Warriors and other things gaming as well. Alright, thanks guys. Bye.